I wish that every mom could hear, you are perfect as you are. You are doing a great job and everything is going to be okay.
Welcome to Cycle Wisdom. I'm Mary Aline, occupational therapist and hormonal health educator, and in each episode, I interview experts dedicated to women's health. So today's conversation is for moms and everyone who loves a mom, which I think probably covers most of us. And I am talking to Cara Matsukane Ho, who helps moms work through difficult emotions like anxiety, pain from childhood, so that they can access more joy and raise children who thrive. Cara is the owner of Matsu Love, is an integrative trauma coach, Reiki practitioner, and a specialist in maternal well-being. Welcome, Cara. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to chat.
So let's jump right in. And we probably know the answer to this, but let's talk through why we should even care about mom's emotional health these days.
Sure. So, that could be the whole podcast episode, but I'll try to keep it succinct. So, there's actually a lot of research that shows that maternal well-being, maternal happiness, and life satisfaction are directly correlated to positive outcomes for their children, academic outcomes, behavioral, family stability. So for me, I really see maternal well-being as the access to a better society, because if our moms are happy and well, they'll raise children who are, well connected to themselves, developmentally healthy, and will be better leaders for the future of our society. So I think it's like the most important thing is to focus on for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And right, if we weren't motivated enough just to become happy for our own well-being or work on our own well-being, then having this research that also shows that our well-being as caregivers, moms, parents are trickling down to our child's well-being, I think is huge. And that sort of brings me into the next question is, why is being a good mom so hard nowadays?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I think there's several components to that. I think one of the most pronounced things is the comparison that comes from social media. Moms now have access to seeing, they're comparing their insides to everybody else's outside. So they're seeing these moms in perfect like moments with these sandwiches cut out so, on their little beautiful little bento boxes and making homemade sourdough and all these things that are beautiful. Meanwhile, they can't even get the pile of laundry that's been sitting there for a week folded and put away. So I think there's a big aspect of comparison, and comparison is the thief of joy. And then also using these external measuring sticks to measure your performance as a mom. Performance is kind of a weird word to use, but that's just the word that came up. Instead of comparing yourself or measuring yourself with your own internal values. So without defining and having in front of you what your internal values are and checking yourself against that, the natural thing to do is to compare yourself to external things. So being a good mom or a bad mom becomes this measuring stick that's like kind of arbitrary, but also you feel like you're always failing. And then I think the third piece of this that's important to recognize is thinking that there's such thing as either a good mom or a bad mom, like just black or white thinking. Actually a cognitive distortion, which is a therapeutic term. It basically means any kind of irrational or exaggerated pattern of thinking that negatively twists your perception of reality. So when you have this cognitive distortion of I'm either a good mom or a bad mom, and you're measuring it against these arbitrary things, it kind of leaves you in this roller coaster. And those kinds of patterns of thinking can lead to anxiety and depression, identity issues, which a lot of moms are dealing with. So if you are able to adopt more of a growth mindset, and instead of thinking I'm either a good mom or a bad mom, when there are moments that happen that you might see like, oh, I was a bad mom just then, if you could see it as an opportunity for you to learn and grow, I think that will benefit you in the long term versus seeing it as like, oh, that's proof that I'm a bad mom. Because ultimately life and people are so nuanced, there is no such thing as a good mom or a bad mom. But I think everybody believes that there is, but again, that's a distorted way of thinking.
Yeah, and it also sounds like if we're not clear on what our values are, like what we actually value as a parent, then the bar is always moving. Because what I value as a parent, it could be so different than what another person values as a parent. And then we're seeing what they value. And if we're not attuned or aware of what our values are, then it's arbitrary to compare those two things.
Exactly. I mean, that has so many broader implications as well in terms of living and coexisting together in a culture is every individual has different values and they're going to act according to those. And when we compare ourselves to each other, it's not apples to apples. So letting go of that comparison and just living true to your own value set and allowing others to do the same, that will allow for a lot more acceptance of yourself and others and less judgment, which I think, again, like now that there's social media and mom groups, they're all comparing themselves to each other and judging each other for the decisions they're making. But if they could recognize that everyone's just acting in alignment with their own value system, it would just create a lot more harmony.
And speaking of moms groups, before I was preparing for this conversation, and I put out a question on Instagram around like what is the most challenging aspect of being a mom in today's society. And so many people shared community and isolation from community. Yeah. And so it's interesting that I feel like there's a prevalence of moms groups, at least in like certain metropolitan areas. But then there's also still this lack of community that is felt amongst mothers. And so do you have thoughts around that?
I have a lot of thoughts. I mean, the single family home is maybe the worst thing that ever happened to our society, because now that we no longer live in community and live in a village, it takes a village to raise a kid. It's so hard for one or two parents to raise kids in a single family home in isolation and attune to those children and give them everything that those children need. It's impossible, especially if one or both parents are working. Yeah. So not being able to have a bunch of adults around you to co-regulate with and to step in. There's this term in some other cultures, I forget where, maybe in South America, called allo mother, which is a woman who would step in and replace the mom when she needed a break, sometimes even wet nursing the children, and would be the mother figure for that family while the mom took a break. Like, we don't really have as much of that in today's society. And I think it's impacting everybody, not just moms.
So it sounds like there's this like isolation component, but also this visibility of little tiny moments right through social media. So there's this isolation, this lack of like reality, and this little window into other people's worlds and lives contrived. So that comparison is just so much more amplified. And then there's that lack of support in the everyday mundane as well.
Right. Totally.
Just ripe for causing some like deep challenges.
Absolutely. I actually was just listening to a podcast episode recently about something called collective illusions, which is when, in a group, we all survived in groups. So our brains are hardwired to conform to whatever we think the group is doing. And with social media, that creates an interesting dynamic where we all are seeing these collective illusions of what people are doing. And so we're trying to conform to this false thing. And it creates a lot of disconnection, isolation, and even, a lot of the problems in our country, I think, arise from this whole idea of a collective illusion. And the antidote to collective illusions is authenticity. So I think anytime a woman can speak her truth and share what's actually going on, social media might not even be the proper platform for that, because I think nowadays too, like, some people are using authenticity as social currency or being vulnerable as social currency. But anytime you can gather in a group of women and actually like tell the truth about what's going on, I think that's the antidote to that aspect of isolation. Authenticity breeds more authenticity. So as soon as one person can share and kind of crack open that space, then it makes it a lot safer for the next person to share. So I think it's challenging to create safe spaces that breed authenticity. And especially as a facilitator, I think it's important to go first. To share something. It doesn't even have to be relevant to motherhood, but just to share something authentic, I think opens up the space. And another thing, so that it doesn't get into the realm of just bitching and moaning, which is not fun for anybody. In the 12-step community, we say, share your experience, your strength, and your hope. So anytime you're sharing something that might be challenging, your brain is also looking for, but where is there strength and hope in this experience? Even if it's really difficult, like where am I having strength or hope here? And so it's like, it has that little formula is super powerful.
Yeah, I love that. Because, yeah, I mean, not just moms, but I feel like all of us could benefit from more spaces like this, but especially moms, because there's that isolation piece
Right.
and that
Absolutely.
lack of reality. I mean, like the trad wives, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
that is not a bar that anybody can get to without significant support from a
Right.
team. Like
Right.
a team is
Right.
behind
And
those.
significant financial support.
Totally, totally,
Yes. Yeah.
totally.
Right.
And if there's any moms that are listening to this right now, if you have a group or if you have any thoughts on how we can sort of get to the next level or create spaces where we can really feel held up in community, like please put that in the comments below. I think that's can be really supportive for all of us. Or if you're like, I'm part of one of those groups in this location, right? Let's share those resources. So what are 2 to 3 habits that moms can really start doing now to support their joy and their happiness in what's happening in their everyday lives?
Yeah, great. So I think the number one thing is to start prioritizing herself, which is like so hard for moms. I mean, this is one of the things why I would love it if a mom would just take care of herself to take care of herself. But I can't get moms to do that. I have to trick them. I have to have a Trojan horse called it's better for your kids if you take care of yourself to get them to prioritize their own wellness, right? So I think that's the number one thing is when you think of self-care is thrown around so much today, and I feel like it's misused in a lot of ways. The way that I think about self-care is treating yourself like a child. So if I'm caring for myself as a child, I'm making sure that I get really good sleep. I go to bed on time. I wake up at consistent times. I am eating well. I don't have too much stimulation, so I'm not overstimulated. Because I think, especially for moms, there's so many emotions going on in the full day of motherhood. So and being able to have stress resilience and build your emotional capacity is so reliant on what you're eating and how you're sleeping and how much stimulation you have in your life. So focusing on those things. Sorry, this is all encompassed in prioritizing yourself. And then, choosing the things that are going to make you feel good and saying no to the things that will make you feel bad. So having boundaries, and also included in this piece is asking for support, which is really hard for moms, but it's a non-negotiable. You just have to get over that difficulty and learn how to receive support. So I think that's the number one thing is prioritizing your own wellness. And then the second thing is slowing down, enjoying the small moments. So when you're in the present moment, joy and gratitude are inevitable. It's like very hard to be in a present moment and not experience joy and gratitude. And it's hard for moms to experience being present because their brains are so all over the place in terms of, I need to get the teacher the gift for Christmas, and I need to make sure that the recipes for Thanksgiving are lined up, and all these things that their brains are tracking. So any way you can slow yourself down and just enjoy small moments of presence. I like to use food as a way to do that. Like if you can not be doing anything else when you eat, even if it's just for one bite, and just focus on the experience of eating. And then also limiting the things that are creating that kind of brain quickness. So dopamine, like anything like sugar, caffeine, scrolling on social media, television, even nowadays, reading has become a new method for distraction and quick dopamine. And so if you can limit some of those things so that your brain is able to slow down, I think that will benefit you as well. And then the third thing is practicing connecting to your body. So we are all so disconnected from what's going on in our bodies. We dissociate. Sometimes we don't even notice when we're hot or cold or hungry or need pee, especially for moms. So practicing connecting to and listening to what your body has to say to you. One practice I have, I'll even do it sometimes at like a red light, is I put my hand on my heart and I just have like a moment of like, okay, what's going on inside of me right now? I start every session with my client in that like kind of introspective practice for interoception, which is you're sensing what's going on inside of you. So anytime you can slow down, connect with your body, and then start listening to your body's cues, that will help with 1 and 2 as well. And slowing down, I think, will help with all of it. We're all moving so fast, including our brains. So anytime you can slow down, connect with your body, enjoy the small moments, and take care of yourself. I think those things practiced every day in little moments that will help you cultivate more joy in your day-to-day life.
Oof. That's a beautiful list. And I want that for everybody, not just moms, right? I want that for everybody. And even though it sounds so simple, I've found that those simple, mundane, everyday things are the hardest to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
So also don't make yourself wrong if you're not able to do that well. It's definitely a practice and it's an ongoing practice. And I think it's also modeling for our kids how to connect with themselves, take care of themselves, and be present. So it's really important for everybody.
Yeah. I would love to add on to that is training the brain, because this is something that I've personally been working on a lot, is training the brain to be in the gain, which I wasn't even planning on.
Yeah.
To be in the gain, which is not looking at the litany of things that we did not get to, or we did not get done, or we didn't do well, but like being able to identify and stay present with the small, tiny gains of like taking a moment and like enjoying the sunshine today, or taking a bite of like my delicious meal without like running around the house to catch up with my toddler. So reorienting, because I feel like the brain is so great at finding problems and finding things that didn't happen or didn't get done. And so I've just been really trying to change some of that thought patterning around, okay, what did I not do today, to what are some gains that I, even one is great.
Yeah. No, that's so good, because like you said, the brain, we have a negativity bias. Our brain is looking for negative. It's the neural pathways for negative connections are easier. They move a lot faster. So training your brain to see the gain, the positive. There's actually a framework I use in one of the workshops I teach called The Gap in the Gain. It's a book that's actually a corporate book, but it's so applicable to motherhood. And it's about focusing on the gain, because what you focus on multiplies.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's so good.
And teaching our kids that too.
Yes.
Teaching our kids that they can do hard things, and teaching our kids like how to think, right? Yeah. Nobody is teaching us how to think and how to take in information, how to like interpret it. So I've recently just been working with a lot of really, really smart kids in preschool and around that 3-year-old range, and starting to notice that there's some kids that are starting to show signs of anxiety even at that young of age. And so was doing some coaching with a parent around like, how can we support him in knowing that he can do hard things and that he can get support when he needs it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's really good. And I think kids can be such a good and sometimes confronting mirror for ourselves about what we're dealing with. I heard a trauma therapist recently share that kids will feel whatever emotions we don't feel. So if your kid is feeling something, it's good to look at yourself and see, like, am I not processing this emotion? Because that's, those steps I was giving, or those habits, are all about building your emotional capacity. And that also will give you more access to joy, because emotions are like this. If you limit your more painful emotions like anxiety, depression, sadness, grief, you're going to limit your joy, happiness, love. Like, so you need to expand that capacity and teach our kids too. Like, we don't grow up learning how to hold space for all this crazy stuff that goes on in our bodies. And so we live now in a society that's so addicted to all these things that have us escape from our experience. So how can we practice ourselves how to hold space for those things within us? Because that will naturally translate to our kids being able to do the same.
If there's one thing that you wish all moms could hear right now, what would that be?
That's a good one. I wish that every mom could hear, you are perfect as you are. You are doing a great job, and everything is going to be okay.
Thank you so much, Cara.
Yeah.
Cara offers online support. Do you want to talk a little bit more about your offering?
Sure. Yeah. So I do one-on-one coaching. My ideal is a 6-month coaching container so that I can support moms in building their emotional capacity, working through their developmental trauma, and cultivating more joy in their day-to-day lives. And a lot of our time together is spent processing their emotions. So it's like a good time to sit and feel, and I hold space for that. And that's one of my gifts. So I love doing that. I offer initial sessions at a discounted rate so that you can try me out. And I also offer free clarity calls if you'd like to just chat and get to know me, or if you need to be pointed in a direction. Like, I have so many practitioner friends, or I've tried so many things myself. So if I'm not able to support you, I know I could point you in the right direction of what you might need or want based on your own goals.
Amazing. We will link that in the show notes. Thanks so much for sharing your wisdom here today.
Thanks for having me.